the best deal Thursdays. I want to ask you now about one of your deals that stands out as maybe one of the best deals so far in your life, where everything just clicked and you're really happy about how it went. And
for sure, yeah. I mean, I shared some bad ones. I gotta maybe balance it out here with some good ones.
Now.
So, there's one deal that comes to mind that basically took me from a more linear path of growth to we started to hit more of a hockey stick. I think it was 2019 that we bought. No, it was 2020 that we bought this one. But I connected with an owner through direct email. This is still when I didn't raise capital at the time. I was still very much using a lot of debt, using some creative financing, trying to build a portfolio with my own money. I'd bought a lot of stuff that was, on a deal by deal basis. That was anywhere from 3 to 8 units was the biggest one I had bought at the time. And I connected with this owner who had a portfolio of properties in Manchester, New Hampshire. He had 5 buildings, 27 units was the total unit count. And it was the biggest deal I had looked at individually up to that point. And buildings were very well maintained. He was a great owner from like a physical attention standpoint. There was no deferred maintenance. The buildings themselves were really nice. They were also located in quality neighborhoods, kind of B- class neighborhoods. There was one that was in maybe a C+, but still a good good pocket of that specific neighborhood. And I ended up working him as a lead for 8, 9, 10 months. And finally, the time came for him to sell because he was just looking to retire and he wanted to sell all of them. But he insisted that he was going to get an appraisal, and that was going to be the price that he wanted to take. And I was like, oh, it's frustrating, right? Because oftentimes I think when somebody gets an appraisal, it's, you have no idea if where that number is going to come in. And oftentimes, we've seen plenty of appraisers overvalue buildings, right? Or value them too high comparatively to what the market would pay. However, he hired an appraiser, was somebody local to Manchester, and the appraiser just didn't appraise them well, and appraised them at a price that I was actually willing to pay and that I thought was very compelling. So sent me all the reports. I said, that's fine. I sent him a purchase and sale agreement. And it was a very interesting deal in that I put all of them under their own purchase and sale instead of lumping them into one PSA, so that I could either assign or finance each of them individually or slightly differently. And again, this is one of those deals I had to accept just minimal due diligence. So we walked 2 units in all of the buildings. So I probably, I walked, 14 out of the 27 units and the basements, but I didn't get to see the other ones. I didn't have trailing financials, but I was very comfortable with what it cost to operate real estate in that market. And based on the units I could see and the basements and the exteriors and the common areas, I had a sense of, I knew this was a quality owner. I knew he took care of his buildings. And I didn't really have concern around like getting into the other ones and they're going to be bombshells. And I also had the level of comfort knowing that I was buying this at a very compelling price per unit. So long story short, the total purchase price for all of them was $2.4 million. So it was under $100,000 a unit. And financed them all kinds of different ways. I had one with a ton of private money. I had another one with just hard money debt at 75. And then I had another private investor come in for a second position mortgage. I used banks, just traditional bank debt for 2 of them. And then the third one, I also used private money. I ended up bringing maybe 5% of the purchase price myself to the table. So I didn't bring a lot of personal capital. And I ended up flipping one and did extremely well on the one that I just bought and sold. I basically bought it for $305 and sold it for $500 in under a year. And then the other ones I refinanced, obviously all of my money, I only have 5% in, but they appraised the other properties. Basically, if I were to segment those purchase prices, 24 of the units, I paid 2.1 and they appraised at 3.4, 12 months later. And I pulled out a ton of capital and put a bunch of money in the bank. And I've since sold a couple of those over the years just to roll the equity into, more deals. And then a couple of those I still own now. And they're still, some of the best performing pieces of property that I have. And I probably won't sell them for a while because I have 3.75% interest rate on the debt. So long story short, that was a deal where it was like, yeah, we're doing well. We're doing well. I had rebounded nicely from that bad deal I did a couple years earlier. But that was like, bang. That set me up for, gave me the runway to really grow the business. And it really, kind of solidified the portfolio that had been built. And a few of those buildings were kind of the seed capital once I started selling them to be the co-invest to do some of the larger projects that we had going on, to make some of the key hires in the business. And when I look back at like the pivotal deal that allowed us to really kind of grow quickly, it was that one.
It was that one, huh? Wow. That sounds like a home run. And you didn't walk all the units. You broke one of Joe Fairless's cardinal rules to walk every single unit, but it still worked out for you. You had enough trust in the guys.
We just did a 15 unit deal last week where I walked one out of the 15 units.
Uh-oh.
You know what I think is interesting is, I don't want to go on a tangent, and I don't want to completely, like, when you're doing large deals, when you're doing 100+ unit deals, that's what I define as large here, 10 million plus institutional quality deals. You're basically making levered bets on the macroeconomic situation of that specific marketplace. You're so very rarely buying truly discounted real estate when you're playing at that level, because the deals are brokered by very competent individuals. They're pursued by very competent buyers. They're typically owned by competent sellers. You know, you're not buying a deal at 10, 15, 20% below market value. Do they happen? Sure, but it's like the small 1%. You know, and then especially when you get into the big stuff, 200+ units, there's no margin there, right? You're underwriting to the 10th of a decimal point, and you're competing with incredibly well capitalized, low cost of capital, intelligent buyers. That market is completely different. I don't even think they're the same asset class. They're really not. From the sub-institutional 5 to 50 unit space, where you're buying from people that are going through, you know, they're just like, I don't want to manage anymore. I have to evict 2 tenants out of the, you know, in this 20 unit building. I don't give a crap. My kids don't want to run it. I'm just going to sell it. I want to sell it now. Like, no one's doing that who owns a 150 unit property, right? So a lot of the times the deals that we win and that we do are because of the fact that we're able to play in the gray. And this deal that we bought literally last week, I mean, it's Raymond, New Hampshire. I'm sure you're familiar with Raymond, or know that town. We bought a deal at $85,000 a unit. Like, that's unheard of in New Hampshire. Like, you could be in Berlin, New Hampshire, on the Canadian border, where there's 2,000 people and no jobs, and you're paying $100,000 a unit to buy multifamily. And it's like, yeah, because we can walk one out of the 15 units, and the seller's like, I don't have the keys. My management company is stealing from me. Please get rid of this. You know, I don't want this anymore. It's like, no problem. We can help you. So it's such a different ball game, you know, and I'm always telling people, because there's a lot of people that buy deals that I know that, you know, that are, whether they're New Hampshire, they're probably some folks that are common to both of our networks, and they can't get out of their own way as it relates to, I want to buy killer deals, but I also want all of your financials. I want your tax returns. I want to walk every single unit. I want 75 days to close. I want a 30-day due diligence period. Yes, you could probably find deals, especially if you're looking at small stuff, but like, you're making it a lot harder on yourself to do that. In order to hit those massive 2x your equity in 1 year type of deals, or your personal equity, or, you know, if you're raising capital to offer those 20+ IRRs and to buy stuff at real meaty discounts, you have to accept some level of risk. Total sidetrack, maybe not what you were hoping to chat about, but something that I'm like pretty passionate about, because
I
those
think
are two different worlds.
I think it is a great point, and we talked about a lot. I'm a little more of a risk taker than my wife, so I always have been. My wife's the one who has to keep us, you know, she pays all our bills. She's the one that's taking care of the family over the years, and I'm the one like, yeah, let's put it all on red, spin the wheel. Like, you know, so she's always like, she has to rein me in. But I've noticed the same thing over the years. You do have to go out on a limb there. Some people just don't have the composition to do it. Some people are like, every square's got to be checked, and that's the way they are, and that's fine. And some people just succeed that way. They listen to Dave Ramsey. They do whatever Dave Ramsey says, for instance, with their money, and that's definitely a smart way.
And there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, they're exactly.
It's just a different approach.
Yeah. And then some people gamble a little more on the edges to an extent, and it's not like you're doing crazy things. You're not, speaking of you're not going into a casino. You're taking a very calculated risk. And like you said, 8 out of 10 times, it all goes well. One, maybe like this, one might go bad. Yep. Sometimes the one that goes bad, like I think of a rehab that I did with a friend and my wife managed it, then it may make you say, oh, I don't want to do this again, because we got a 2-family, and we didn't know the people that had been rehabbing it. Just another quick side note, like father and son did a lot of the work, and it looked really good, but they did all kinds of weird things. Like they didn't, PVC pipes weren't connected behind the walls. So like there were things that weren't done that it seemed like they were. And then you're like, oh, all of a sudden there's water coming through a wall. You're like, I'm never going to buy into something again. So that would make you say, okay, absolutely, I'm going to get an inspection of every single unit. But like you said, you got to take calculated risk to get the bigger reward. Hey, thanks for having me on. If anybody else wants to find out more about what we're doing, please come to froggycompanies.com. Check out our 3 different business areas. We also have the Froggy Fund 1 that's now open for up to $18 million. We're going to be investing that $18 million across a diverse number of assets, cash flowing and ground up. And I'm really excited about this fund and really confident that we can outperform most of the other people out there in terms of what we invest in and how we do our due diligence and the type of partners we put together. So it's great talking to you, and see you next time.